Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name is Amanda, and I'm so glad that you could join me today. Today, we've got a good one for you. We've been talking about the Jehovah Witnesses, what they believe, how they live their daily life, and today we're going to be talking about the role of women within the religion, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the holidays they celebrate. So, if you're ready, let's begin. So, the Jehovah Witnesses are very strong believers in the family unit. They believe that marriage is one of the highest things that a person can do to show their appreciation for God, for His creation. As such, men and women definitely have different roles. The women in general are all about the nurturing and the raising of the family. Men are the leaders within the worship spaces. Men are the leaders within the household. So women are supposed to be subservient and helper maids to their spouse. Their family is supposed to be their main focus, with motherhood their top life goal. Okay. This is a bit controversial, but I'm going to just come right out and say it. Being raped, having premarital sex is a huge problem for the Jehovah Witnesses. If you allow, in their words, yourself to be raped before marriage, you are sin, you are sacrificed, you are such a disappointment to God. And I can't imagine in that situation feeling that pressure as well. Similarly, if you have an abortion, that is an excommunicable offense. That is taking something that was God's plan away. Abortion is not tolerated, not even if your life is in jeopardy. So if I was pregnant and the only way that my life could be spared was to abort my baby, they would rather have me die than me lose the baby, because all life is important, and it is God who makes that decision on whose life should be spared, not anyone else's. So whenever you're making that choice, they believe that that's a choice that's not for you and is a huge problem. They do allow birth control on that message, but it is discouraged. It's not forbidden, but it's not something you should be very public about, and it should be something that's discouraged. You most certainly, as a female, cannot make that decision by yourself. You would have to make that with your spouse. So if you happen to be raped, for example, you can't take the plan B, because that would essentially be like abortion. And you certainly could not take that without the permission of the individual who raped you, which just logistically causes all kinds of problems in one's mind, doesn't it? It does. But anyways, moving on from that. In the household, when females have children, their main responsibility is they're in charge of, and this was interesting, they're in charge of both the nurturing and the teaching of the children, but also the discipline of the children, which is different because I feel like in most households, the discipline falls more towards the dad or the male force in the house than the mom force, because it's tough to be nurturing and the disciplinarian at the same time. Certainly you need both, but this was the first religion that I saw where their main focus was not only the nurturing and the teaching, but also the discipline of the children. So interesting to me. The female witnesses that are attending worship services, they can attend worship services. There is not any requirement or restriction as to when they can or can't attend worship services. However, they are required to wear a head covering whenever they are in prayer or in a teaching situation. So if no males are available to lead the children's study, then a female could step in and lead it, but they would need to wear a head covering. Sometimes it would look like a scarf. Sometimes it kind of looks like a doily or something that would just be safety pinned to their head. But basically they do that to remind them that they are not the head and that they are to be subservient to any male, and especially to God. So interesting. If they need to get a job outside of the home, very much discouraged to get a job outside of the home as a female, by the way. But if you do need to get a job outside of the home, you are to stay in more of a traditional, quote unquote, field. So teaching, cooking, waitressing, serving, things like that. You certainly cannot be in a position where you would draw more attention to yourself, and you should not be in a position where you are the head and like you're in charge of other males. You shouldn't do that. In particular, strictly forbidden is any career within the law field or the journalism field, because that's seen as being very argumentative and drawing attention to yourself. If any time the position is taking you away from your family, if your husband is feeling neglected, you are to leave your position. It is also interesting, in an upcoming video we're going to be talking about some of the things they can't do because they're viewed as serious sins or mortal sins. And if your job incorporates any of those, so if you were a waitress, for example, they can't use alcohol. If you were if your table that you were waiting on requested 2 glasses of wine, you could not bring that to them. You could no longer serve that table because that would be encouraging people to do things that you're not supposed to do, and that would be marked against you. And it turns into this whole messy spaghetti kind of situation. Just interesting. And I can only think like, okay, when there's so many like introspective things on there, it just makes me wonder, okay, what's the real purpose here? Is it to protect yourself, or is it to control you? What's the real purpose here? Just makes me wonder. Also wanted to note that certainly females need to have traditional dress. They need to have traditional hair. They can wear makeup. It should not be loud or exaggerated makeup. It should enhance their natural beauty, but should not be very evident to the casual walker by. So you shouldn't have, for example, bright pink eyeshadow, because that's not naturally occurring. If you wanted to have brown eyeshadow or things like that, that would be absolutely fine. You can get your hair dyed as long as it's a hair color that's normally occurring in nature for people. So pink is the color of a flamingo. It's not a normal, naturally occurring hair color. That would not be allowed. In your dress, you should also be not drawing attention to yourself in what you're dressing, as far as you should be very modest. You should also limit the type of jewelry and the amount of jewelry you are wearing. And then lastly, talking about the importance of marriage. The only time that divorce is an option, and only it's a last resort option, and you have to go through multiple steps and counseling to even get to consider this option, it would be for extreme spiritual abandonment or adultery. Those are the two. Everything else, that having a divorce is not an option. Just interesting. I have known some individuals who were Jehovah Witnesses. They are very loving people. They are very much all about their family and making sure that they protect their family and that family unit, making sure they respect each other, making sure that they have each other first and foremost. in how they carry themselves and interact with the world. It is because they are very secretive about some things, or they do things that are quote unquote different than a lot of others in society and in the Protestant Catholic faith that's so abundant in the world. Many people view them as strange just because they do something different. And unfortunately, people do. They judge what they don't know or they don't understand just because they don't know it. Another thing that they do that will set them apart, and as a teacher I have had to be very conscientious of this, is they do not celebrate any man-made holidays or traditions. They don't celebrate any national holidays, birthdays, and typically anniversaries. Some people are starting to celebrate their anniversaries, but typically they do not. And that's because they feel that when they have a celebration on the national level or on a religious level or on a personal level, they're drawing the attention to themselves. They're trying to make themselves feel better, more special, and they believe that everything that should be celebrated should be for God. And so there's only really one day that they count as a celebration. Now, on this one day, because you can imagine, like most Christians, they'll have Easter, they'll have Christmas, they'll have their birthdays, they'll have all these other national holidays. So you're thinking, okay, there's going to be parades and there's going to be food and presents probably. Can you imagine if you had one day? Put all those things on one day. Sounds like a pretty awesome day, right? Yeah. For Jehovah Witnesses, that one day is not special like that, though. For their one-day holiday, there are no big special meals. There are no parades. There are no birthday cakes, no party decorations, nothing like that. The one special day that they have, that they celebrate, is known as the memorial of Christ's death. Other people may call it the Lord's evening meal. And this occurs on the evening before the Jewish holiday of Pesach or Passover, and it occurs on the 14th day of Nisan for the Hebrew calendar. So it's typically in April-ish. Okay? This would be for Christians on the start of Holy Week. Sometimes people will have a service on Maundy, Thursday, and they will have what's called a Tembre service, and they'll talk about when Jesus was in the upper room and he did all these things. It'll fall sometime between the Palm Sunday and that Maundy, Thursday time period is when it would fall in the Jehovah Witnesses. Okay, on this day, they remember, it's supposed to serve as a reminder for the most important event in human history, the day that Jesus Christ gave his life for the world and all of mankind. It's a pretty big day, if you believe in Jesus, yes. So what do they do to celebrate this day? Glad you asked. I'm happy to tell you. So basically, on this day, now keep in mind, a normal worship service for the Jehovah Witnesses is about 90 minutes or like an hour and a half, okay? On this day, they will have a service that's about 2.5 to 3 hours, okay? And it will start with songs, and then there'll be prayers, and then there'll be a talk given by the elder, very common procedure. And this talk is going to talk about the fail of Adam and Eve. The fail and the fall. How they failed, how they messed up, what happened when they did that. Okay? Then they're going to talk about the importance of Jesus' death. Then they're going to talk about the distinction between the anointed and the great crowd or the other sheep. So remember that's that two groups of people. There's those special group of people, that 144,000 that on the day of reckoning is going to ascend and rule in heaven with Jesus. And then there's the other sheep, or the other crowd, or the great crowd, many different names for it, who are going to live on earth with God and be in this perfect state of harmony. Okay, so they're going to talk about those two things. It is on this day and this day only that the Jehovah Witnesses will receive what's comparable to communion or the Eucharist in other religions, okay? So it'll be unleavened bread, and it'll be a red juice, because they don't do alcohol. They wouldn't do wine. And this symbolizes Jesus' body and Jesus' bread, just like many other Christian denominations or Protestant denominations. But it's only on this one day, and many people don't partake. Now, why don't they partake, Amanda? What a great question. Let me tell you. Most Jehovah Witnesses will not partake in this meal because they believe that only those who are anointed, part of that 144,000, should partake in this meal. So many will be present, many will watch other people take and partake in this meal, but they will not participate themselves because they want to be humble and say that they are not part of that 144,000. That was interesting to me. From what I've learned thus far about the Jehovah Witnesses, they're very big about humility and service. And that is something amazing and awe-inspiring. Selfishly, I enjoy the holidays, and I enjoy the special things, and I enjoy when my birthday comes, and I enjoy feeling like a special creation from God at that moment. So I struggle to imagine living a year as a Jehovah Witness and you don't have a special day that makes you special at all. You're supposed to be special all the time just with God, and you're supposed to focus more on God than any other worldly pleasures. And at a logical side, that makes sense. At a selfish side, that seems tough. So just interesting. Something to think about for sure. Very, very intriguing. I am really enjoying learning more and more about this denomination and just the inner workings. In our next video that's coming up, we're going to be talking about the hierarchy within the Jehovah Witness organization, because I quite honestly was clueless and didn't know anything about the hierarchy. So we are going to tackle that in our next episode. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to hit subscribe, because you're going to most certainly want to catch our next episode when we talk about the hierarchy within the Jehovah Witnesses. Until then, I hope you take care, and remember to keep on learning, because the more you know, the more you grow. Bye-bye.